Today we're going to dive into a challenge that parents face fairly often, fairly frequently, and that is dining out with children. And here's the twist, we're going to do it without screens. I know it is tempting to take the iPad to the restaurant, to bring it in. And I don't think it starts here for a lot of people. I think the first time you get that iPad, you're flying somewhere or you're going on a long road trip. You get the iPad and then you say it's only for trips. And then it becomes, well, we're driving 2 hours, let's get it out. Oh, we're only driving 30 minutes, let's get it out. And it becomes the thing. And then maybe you're going out to dinner with some friends and maybe they don't have children and you want your kids to be really good. So you bring out that iPad. You've started something, you've created something, and it is something that I personally, in my family and my convictions, am trying to avoid. If you're all for it, maybe this isn't the video for you. But if you're somebody that's trying to either not start your kids on the iPad, maybe you got little babies, or you have an older child and you're trying to break them from the iPad, I do have tips and tricks that can apply to both situations and both points in life. Okay, so we're going to touch on a little bit of different age brackets and growth and development and how we can have screen-free dinners and make it possible. I think one of the first keys is to set the foundation and decide what are your standards. Okay, so this is something where maybe you and your partner need to discuss it when either before you have children or when they're just itty bitty. You got an 8-month-old, they can't talk, they're not asking for an iPad yet. Have those conversations. How do you envision meal times going at a restaurant or even at home? Discuss that. Figure out what you are open to and what you are comfortable with. It's very important for parents to be on the same page, especially as your kids get older and they can see if there's any tension or disagreement between you. Now, I personally think we should avoid the screens as much as we can in settings like that. Now, if your kid gets electronic time at home during like quiet time, okay. But is it socially ideal for them to be on an iPad at a restaurant? What's the point of going out to eat if they're not visiting with you at the table or just looking around at their surroundings, just being like present in the moment? So for us, one of our iPad rules, first and foremost, is we don't have any. That's where we started and we established our boundaries, is we're choosing not to get one because we know it's a very slippery slope. So for us, the first step in having screen-free dinners is not having a screen in the first place. Now, if you already own an iPad, the next step would be not to have it in the car. If it's in the car, somebody will go out and get it if needed. Don't make it an option. Now, I do quickly want to touch on just those boundaries in general. Everyone has different ones and standards, and that's perfectly fine. The inspiration for this video came from an article I saw somewhere on Google, and it was a dad, or I believe it was a new dad, either they were pregnant or had just had a baby, and he was saying how he did not want to be like an iPad family at restaurants. The comment section was just blowing up and ripping him apart. Things like, get back to me in 4 years and tell me how that's still going, or you don't understand what it's like yet, just wait. Right now your baby's an infant, things like that. And obviously I do understand there's always unique situations. There's, children with special needs or sensory issues or this and that. But even in those situations, I do think you can work with your children. I do. You are entitled to your own thoughts 100%, as I am, of course, as well. But I thought this was so sad that people were ripping this dad apart for saying, I don't want to be an iPad family. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old. Pretty soon we're going to have a 3 and a 5-year-old, and we don't have iPads. It's not hard. It's so not hard. Literally all you have to do is not buy one. It's so simple. And yeah, sometimes meals are a little bit of a struggle. Sometimes they're more challenging. And do my husband and I get to sit there and have perfect silence? No. But if we want to sit there in perfect silence as a couple or have a good conversation as 2 adults, take a date night and leave your kids at home with babysitter. Okay, if you are bringing your children to a restaurant, give them the restaurant experience and teach them while you are there. Okay, that's my little rant. I just felt so bad for this dad on how much he got torn apart for having like a positive set of like aspirations for his family and his children and his desires, and everybody just saying, you'll give up, parenting's so hard and this and that. And it is hard, but parenting is also full of choices, and you can make choices to say no to things, even if they might be the easier in the time solution. Let's just go and start off with the newborn baby. So we'll say 0 newborn baby to say even 12 months. They absolutely should not have a screen in front of them. That is crazy to me. So there's no need whatsoever. But how do you go to a restaurant with a baby this age? Basically, you do your best. If you have the infant car seat, I recommend getting like a booth. You can set them in there. They can see you. They can kind of play in their car seat a little bit. You can take turns holding them. One person holds, the other person eats. Another thing I do with kids in general is I try to have them placed, baby or child, on my left side because I'm right-handed. It's probably coming across backwards in the camera here, but I would hold them in my left hand, or my toddler kind of is on my left side so I can eat with my right hand. So that's a trick I've sort of worked on as our now 2-year-old sits in the booth beside me usually, or my husband. If she's with me, I want her on my left side. That's my trick. If she's on my right side, I can't eat. It doesn't work good. So finding tricks really does help. But When you have a new baby, honestly, you just kind of keep them entertained. If they need to breastfeed or bottle feed, you can do that while you're eating. It is what it is. That's not our main focus of the day. So now let's go into 12 months to say 24 months, 1 to 2 years old. This is probably the hardest phase, I would say. You've got a little ball of energy. They might be early walking or late walking by the end of it. They just want to wiggle and they want to move. They're not good at communicating at this point. They're not like verbal enough to really get across what they want, but they start sort of being like demanding, and maybe they're just learning how to speak in a sense. So they make a lot of noise and a lot of sounds, and it just sounds like, honestly, noise and sounds. So this age I think is challenging. I would recommend making dinner fast at this point. It's still good to take them out. It's still good to practice, but let's speed it up a little bit. Maybe on the way to the restaurant, you check the menu online and you know what you're going to order. When you sit down, you order your drinks and you say, hey, do you care if we go ahead and order our meal? Just to speed it up a little bit. You're not rushing through eating the food. You're rushing through a little bit of that wait time, trying to shave it off a little bit. During this time, your little one ideally is sitting in a high chair. I would really try to keep them in a high chair as long as possible at restaurants, because once they get out of it, they don't want to go back. And you've lost that confinement. Something you could do is have one person sit at the table and you're ordering, waiting on the food, waiting on the drinks, whatever. And the other person is maybe walking outside with them a little bit on the sidewalk and letting them stretch their little legs. And then also there is bringing toys. I try not to bring noisy toys. I honestly don't bring much for my children at all. One that you could do is something that is like a suction cup. It can like lock onto the table. Try to, again, get one that's a little bit quiet. I'll link some in the description, but things like that you can make work at a restaurant and at a table setting. The most important thing between 12 months and 2 years old is to push through and to establish really good boundaries of like how we sit, how we eat, what we do at restaurants, that we don't yell at restaurants, because this is going to shape the 2 to 3 years old. Okay, so at 2 to 3 years old, your child should be starting to kind of learn your rhythm and learn what is acceptable and expected of them. They may still be sitting in the high chair, or they may be sitting next to you. We try to get a booth a lot of times, and our 2-year-old will sit by my husband or myself, and our older child, of course, as well. We're currently a family of 4. So anyway, one of us gets the little one, and like I said, I try to have them on my left side so I can eat with my right hand. That's what works best for me right now, because they got out of that high chair one day and they decided they were never going back. So at the 2 to 3 years old, we're trying to encourage them to sit and color if there is a kids menu or a coloring page. We are talking about the restaurant. We're talking about what we see. I know we've had seats where we could kind of see in the kitchen area. We talk about that. Recently, we went out and somebody had a seeing eye dog, and we talked about that a little bit. Kind of notice what's going on around you, look at the decor, try to just involve them in conversation. And if they are potty training, whether they're 2, whether they're 3, whatever their age is, if they are potty training, one huge tip I have, take them potty right after you order. So you sit down, you get your drinks, chill for a minute. After you order that food, I would go with our now 4-year-old, our older child, and take them to the bathroom. Because so many times the food would come and they'd go, I need to go potty. And it would drive me crazy. I was like, I just wanted to eat my food when it was warm. And I would just be like, okay. And I would take them to the restroom. So what I learned is, if possible, especially right in the beginning of their potty training or recently potty trained time, right after you order the food, say, hey, let's go check out the bathroom. Go potty, come back. And that killed some of the wait time. So now by the time you get back to the table, the food, A, might already be there depending on the restaurant you're at, or it's just closer to arriving. So that's great. You killed a little time, and then when your food comes, you're able to stay at the table. Now at 4 years old and beyond, how do we have a screen-free dinner? We talk to our kids. We play games. We ask them about their day. Play I Spy. We play tic-tac-toe. We work on writing our ABCs or writing our numbers or recognizing them, whatever level you're at. Maybe you bring flashcards. If you want to be a super, super minimal parent, throw a pin in your pocket or in your purse, and they can just draw on a napkin even. Like, it can be so, so simple. We don't need screens. We can get through a meal without them. And like I said, if you want your kids to be perfect, leave them at home. Go out on a date night. Have a nice meal without them. If you want them to learn and develop into kids that can sit nicely at a meal at 5 and 6 and 7 years old, you got to start at 1, 2, and 3. And you lay that foundation and you work with them. Your kids can't just magically become good people and good at things and have patience without learning it. We got to teach, okay? We got to take that responsibility and teach our kids. Okay, so just some overall tips. These are going to apply differently to different age brackets. Plan ahead. Know where you're going to eat. Check the menu. Know what you're getting. And if possible, order quickly. With that, You know how I said when you order drinks, you could order all the meals for the table, or you could just go ahead and order the kids' meal so that the kids' meal comes out a little sooner, especially if you got a slow eater. Bring your own entertainment. If you are worried that the restaurant will not have a kids' meal, or if a kids' meal just doesn't do it for your kid, bring them something to do. Something ideally that is quiet and calm. It could be a coloring book. It could be a doodle board. We have these nice doodle boards. I'll link them in the description as well. It could be some sort of a toy. Or like, I know some kids just love like an action figure. They could just bring like one little action figure and they get in their head and they can have so much fun with that. So if your kid has one item they like absolutely love and adore that's very small, could even fit in their pocket, okay, let them bring it. This could also be a time to work on things like ABCs with flashcards. If your kid's learning sight words, almost like if they have homework, but I wouldn't necessarily bring like a worksheet. But just the things that they're working on in school or daycare or just like early learning and development, like preschool level activities, you can spend this time learning because guess what? They're stuck at the table with you. They can't avoid working with you on whatever activity it is. If you want dinner to be screen-free, you need to try to be screen-free as well. So get off your phone. I will say one thing that I absolutely despise is some restaurants don't have a real menu. They do like what's it called? The QR code thingy where you scan it on your phone. I despise that because then I'm sitting at the restaurant scrolling my phone. I'm reading the menu, but I hate the image it gives to my children because I don't want phones at the dinner table, whether at home or at restaurants. We don't do phones when we're eating. Try to keep your phone away as much as possible. Lead by example, okay? Time those bathroom breaks strategically. If maybe the restaurant has a 10-minute wait before you get seated, you could go potty then, but I would actually, again, try to save it for later if possible and like walk around, stretch their little legs as much as you can before they have to sit down for that meal. One tip I haven't mentioned yet is to bring a snack. I pretty much don't go anywhere without something. Now, I am not a firm believer in snacky kids. I don't like my kids to eat at every single thing we go to. I don't think kids need a snack after their soccer game. I don't think they need a snack here and there and everywhere. But I will say when it is a restaurant and maybe the food is taking a while, I do like to have like a bag of animal crackers in my purse where I can pull that out and give them something to nibble on. Because hangry kids can be fussy kids. Like when you're hungry, at least for me, I'm grouchy. So if your kids are really losing it because they're hungry, it doesn't hurt to have a snack on hand. And then one more thing is to sit strategically. Okay, so I already mentioned my kid being on my left side, eating with my right hand, but then also learn what works for your kids. Maybe a booth is great. Maybe a table with chairs works better. And then pay attention to even the way your table's facing. If there's a lot of distractions one way, maybe that's great because it's entertaining for your child, but maybe it's not. So figure out within your family, whether it's family of 4 or more, 3, whatever, how it works the best. Okay, and try to replicate that. And maybe sitting consistently works well for you. Like we have a 4-year-old and 2-year-old. Maybe if I always sit with the 2-year-old and my husband always sits with the 4-year-old, we have a system and it works for us. Don't change it up. Figure out what works for you and be strategic about it. So let's just remember, reality check here, dining out with kids is not going to be perfect. There's going to be spilled drinks. There's going to be sometimes some unhappy little kiddos. I would say there's going to be fits and temper tantrums, but my kids don't throw fits and temper tantrums. They know they're not acceptable. However, do I sometimes have emotional kids or exhausted kids or really, really hungry kids? Yes. Sometimes they are a bit of a mess, but we're never loud and disruptive. We do not allow that. It honestly never gets to that point for us because our kids know our expectations. Now, you got to find what yours are and you got to instill them into your children. So I think the first steps to this are be calm, be patient, set the example of how to act at a restaurant. Get on the same page with your spouse and what your expectations are. I think that's very, very important. And finally, just remember, you are responsible for teaching your children how to act in public and specifically at a restaurant. And even more so, without screens. You can do it, believe it or not. And then next, I'm going to link a video that I find very, very helpful. It complements this one wonderfully. It should be pulling up on the screen right now. And if it does not, check it out in the description. It will be linked there.